Yeah, hello everyone. You are all warmly welcome to today's webinar on myth-busting UK visa applications. My name is Aliyah, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Before we proceed any further, I entreat us all to take note of the following basic rules. Kindly note that your microphone is automatically muted upon joining the webinar. If you have a question for the speaker, please raise your hand using the hand raise icon on your screen. Alternatively, you can use the Q&A feature on your screen. This will help me to efficiently track your questions. If you experience technical challenges, such as issues with your audio or your video, then kindly use the Q&A feature on your screen and we will accordingly address these challenges. We highly encourage all participants to stay for the full 2-hour session, as valuable information will be shared throughout the session, including the Q&A segment. And please note that this webinar is being recorded for future distribution live on Facebook. Now, why this webinar? Briefly, this webinar essentially aims at 1, educating participants on the official UK visa categories, the eligibility requirements, the assessment procedures. It also aims at dispelling common myths, such as having a sponsor in the UK automatically guarantees a visa outcome. And more importantly, the webinar aims at providing an interactive platform to reach larger audiences to clarify misconceptions and promote transparency in the UK visa process from a credible and an experienced practitioner. Now, speaking of a credible source and an experienced practitioner, let's get to know who our guest speaker is. Our guest speaker is a seasoned migration and border management expert with over 3 decades of experience spanning government service in the UK and across Africa and Asia. She has more than 15 years experience as a former UK Chief Immigration Officer, where she undertook several roles, including serving as a visa officer, interviewing applicants, and also deciding visa application outcomes. She currently works as a UK visa consultant at Shellon Services Limited here in Accra, Ghana, where she guides applicants through UK VI procedures. And she also supports vulnerable migrants to navigate complex immigration processes. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Ms. Sarah Parnell as she starts her presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Alia, for that very kind introduction. And we've got 28 people participating so far, so that's a good start. And let's crack on with the show, shall we? As Ali has already mentioned, my name is Sarah, and I used to be a visa officer. And before anybody here gets too upset, it was in Lagos, so hopefully not in Accra. I haven't got any dissatisfied people on the session today, but you are all warmly welcome. Right, so today's session, we're going to be looking at, let me just see if, there we go. Why is this session necessary? When we look at the government published statistics, we can see that the percentage of visa applications based on the number that are issued over the total number of applications gives us what they call an issue rate. Now, Ghana enjoys one of the top 20 positions on the number of applications made. So there's a lot of people applying already in Ghana. Now, if we narrow that down just to the visit visa category, we are looking at about 46,000 Ghanaians who are making applications. Obviously, most of those in Accra, and there's a new visa application centre that's opened in Kumasi. Now, when we're looking at the issue rate, we're looking at a very low percentage, unfortunately, of about 55%. Now, this is obviously something that we need to work on, because when the visa section used to be operating here in Accra at the British High Commission, which admittedly is over 10 years ago now, But the issue rate in those days was closer to 85%. So there's obviously something has gone wrong in the last 10 years. We've got to consider not only by moving the visa section to the UK, the visa officers are less familiar with how Ghana works, how West Africa works, or even how Africa works. So we have to make more of an effort to make sure that all the documents that are submitted with an application do the right talking for us. So you didn't join this webinar just for me to be talking at you. So I am going to ask you to use your the chat feature or the React feature if that's available, and have a think. If the issue rate for Ghana is 55%, let's look at our neighbours, Nigeria. Yes, they're the big brother further along the coast. But what about the percentage rate on Nigerians? How many Nigerians are having their visas issued? So if you think that there are more Nigerians, the issue rate for Nigeria is a higher percentage, can you give me a thumbs up? If you think that Nigeria is a lower percentage, then can you give me a thumbs down? Or if you think it's about the same, can you give me a heart? So could you see if you could put that in the chat for me? You can post it anonymously, you don't have to put your name, just so that we can get an idea of what people think at the moment. I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, I've got 2 thumbs up in the Q&A. Anybody else? Okay, I'll put you out of your misery. Nigeria are doing better than Ghana. The issue rate for Nigeria is 63%. Now, the usual reaction is, oh, but they're a bigger country and then they, greater wealth or whatever. But we're talking about percentages. So what is it that Ghana is not grasping that the Nigerian applicants are? Okay, so hopefully this session is going to cover some of those things. Right, so let's look at the common myths that I see on a regular basis. Quite often I'm told that there is a quota on how many applications are granted. So some people think, oh, there's no point applying at the end of the month because the visa officer will have already reached their quota. Similarly, they think the month starts at a different time, so don't apply at the beginning of the month. Straight away, there is no quota on how many applications are granted. If you qualify, then you will be issued. If the visa officer has concerns, then you won't, and you'll be refused. So please bear in mind that there is no quota. And another misconception is that the visa officer must have been having a bad day. Now, as frustrating as it can be sometimes when a visa application isn't granted, then I can assure you that the standards that the visa officer has to achieve at all times means that they are not permitted just to have a bad day and refuse every application that crosses their desk. This is just a pure fallacy. They have to justify their work to the visa manager, and so this is why the standards should be maintained. Now, that's not to say that they get it right all the time. They don't get it right all the time. There's a huge amount of pressure, particularly now, for visa officers to hit targets every day. And these targets can be pretty tough, which means that the visa officer is only spending minutes on each application. Within those few minutes, they have to review all the documents that have been submitted with the application, and then they have to assess whether everything is there and they meet the right standards. Then they have to make that decision, and that pressure is on. And sometimes that pressure is a lot, and they might arrive at the wrong decision. Now, if you haven't presented everything in your application, then the visa officer can't be held responsible for that. But it is possible to challenge the decision. By challenging the decision, we have to demonstrate that the decision has either been unreasonable, irrational, or unlawful. Now, it's fairly unlikely that we'll come across ones that are unlawful, but I am seeing a lot of applications where I don't agree, and I feel that the conclusion reached by the visa officer is irrational or unreasonable, especially for people who have travelled and complied in the past. So don't think that this is the end of the road. It is possible to look at, and we can certainly take a look at reviewing the applications. Another common myth that I come across is that you must have an invitation from somebody in the UK for your application. This is so common in Ghana, and it's got really difficult sometimes because the visa officer is wanting to ensure that there is actually a genuine relationship between the applicant and the person who's sent the invitation letter. Now, you might be tempted to think, oh, well, my friend from school, we haven't seen each other for 30 years and we used to kick a ball around in the playground. I wonder if I can reach out to him and ask him for an invitation so that I can go to the UK. You've got no intention of staying with that person and you're just purely using the invitation to secure the visa. That's not the right way to go about it. If you genuinely know somebody, if you're genuinely still in touch with that person and they've invited you, then by all means use an invitation. But don't reach out to somebody that you barely know and request an invitation from them, because that just isn't going to work. The other thing that people should be aware of is that with the application, especially now with it all being online, as soon as you start putting in the details of a sponsor in the UK and you're putting their address, the UK visa people will go through it. Their statistics team will go through this and they will look to see how many times has that UK sponsor invited somebody from overseas. And as soon as they see some kind of trend going on, I mean, I used to see it when I was a visa officer, and that was years ago, and we didn't have all the technology that the visa officers are relying on now. And when we see that one address had been used for 50 applicants in the last 2 years, it's just not believable. I mean, the person might think he's got a good group of friends, but it's unreasonable to expect that that address is legitimately being used. So don't fall into that trap. The other thing is people will sell invitations. They will sell the invitation to say, yes, you can come and stay with me and I'll charge you 1,000 Ghana cedis, 500 Ghana cedis, something like that. Do not be tempted by that. It will not influence the outcome of your visa application if you go down that road. So please only use an invitation from somebody that you actually know. I'm going to be relying on my moderator to give me a nudge if she needs to, if somebody's going to pop up with a question, because I'm going through the slides here. So please, Alia, give me a nudge if some questions come up based on the slides as they go through.
Very well, Sarah.
Right, so my next slide talks about bank statements. This is a common misconception as well, in that, oh, if somebody is paying for my trip, then I don't need to put in my personal bank statement. Now, sometimes people are going for business, and so they say, well, I'm not paying for the trip. This is a work trip. So I will show my business bank statement, that my employer's bank statement, so that they can see that my employer can afford to pay for the trip. Yes, that's necessary, but the visa officer also wants to see what your personal circumstances are. So this is why we need to see your own personal bank statement. So this means that this is because the visa officer is not just assessing whether you have a reason to go to the UK and whether you can afford to go to the UK. The visa officer is also assessing whether you're going to come back at the end of the time that you're there. Now, one of the ways that they look at that is looking at your family ties, social ties, economic ties, financial ties, and obviously some of those overlap. So one of the main things that they're looking at is if you're going to get paid from this business and you've got your salary, but you're spending all your salary every month, and then your boss has said, okay, you can go on a trip to the UK and check out this machinery for me. The visa officer wants to know that you are going to come back after you've checked out that machinery, and that you're not going to do a disappearing act in the UK and think that you can get a better job with the skills that you have and then go and work on the underground economy in the UK. This is why they want to see what your strong ties are to your home country. So this applies not just if you're being sponsored by your employer, it also means when you're being sponsored by a relative, a family member. I've seen it where there's a cousin or an aunt or uncle in the UK, and they've said, oh, it's okay, don't worry, I'll pay for your flight because I know how expensive it is. But again, it's not just about who can meet the costs of the trip, it's about whether you're coming back. Now, before you panic here and think, well, hang on a minute, my children want to travel and they don't have bank accounts for themselves. No, that's quite understandable, and the visa officer is not going to expect that. So that you do not need to submit a bank statement for children. That's understandable. But on the application form, when it says how much money are you going to be spending on the trip, you also have to, you can't put zero. Even when you're a child, you can't enter the figure zero. So just put a nominal amount, because whatever figure is on there, it's really going to be covered by the parents. So don't worry too much if you're putting in an application for a child and saying, but they don't have their own bank statement. That's quite normal. So don't panic on that score. Okay, right. Let's look at this one, which is about finances. It's quite common for people to say, but you've got to have a certain amount in your account, and if necessary, you better top up your bank statement. Now, I've seen people and said, right, I need to see your bank statement to see if you can afford this trip. And they've said, oh, yes, I'll bring it to you in a couple of days. And in those couple of days, they have gone underneath the bed. They have collected whatever cash they can find. They've raided the children's piggy bank, and they've gone to the bank and they've put the money in as a cash deposit, so that when they bring the bank statement to me, the end balance looks like they can afford the trip. But this is the wrong way to go about it. The visa officer is going to ask to see 6 months of your bank statements. And the reason for them asking for 6 months, they want to see what is normal for you. What is normal expenditure for you? What is normal income for you? If it was just about what the end balance was, then they'd just need the bank statement for the past week. But they're asking for the past 6 months so that they can see right the way through for the 6 months, how is this person managing with the salary that they have and the standard expenditure that they have. So do not be tempted to raid a piggy bank and put the cash into your bank account to top up the final balance. It just won't work. It's just, in fact, for a lot of people, I have to say, right, let's forget this, and we'll have to start all over again in 6 months' time, then we can look at it. Because this is, if the visa officer can't see where the money has come from, then they're going to think that you've artificially inflated your bank account balance just so that you can get the visa. And they've seen this before, and they've been seeing it for years, and they are just not going to accept it. So please don't be tempted to fall into that trap. The next one on finances is that the visa officer wants to see that you have a minimum of £100, £200, whatever it is, for the duration of your trip. The UK has no specific requirement. If you go to somewhere like Singapore, I think they do. They're expecting you to have at least $100 per day, something like that. But how I usually explain this to people here in Ghana is, if you're going to take me out for lunch, are you going to take me to the Kempinski? Are you going to take me to Vida Cafe? Or are you going to take me to the Chop Bar at the end of the street? Whichever place you're going to take me to for lunch, then you need to have the budget to match. So it's the same with your trip to the UK. If you are going to be traveling first class, and you're going to be staying in a fancy hotel in central London, and you're going to see a show every night, and you're going to be doing your shopping at Harrods, then you need to have a budget to match that. If you're going on a cheaper airline and you're just going economy and you're watching your pennies so that you stay with somebody, so you don't have an accommodation costs, but you're just going to manage with the funds that you have, then that's fine as well. Just have the budget to match what you say you're going to do. Don't be thinking that you're going to throw money at this and just show off to the visa officer. They've seen it all before. So just be straightforward, just be honest and explain exactly what you're going to do. And just be reasonable in the amount that you want to spend on your trip. Some people don't do their homework and to find out even how much an airline ticket is. And most of the time, we're looking at a minimum of 15,000 Ghana cedis. So straight away, we need to show that we've got that. We've got money to cover accommodation costs if necessary. And accommodation is expensive in the UK, especially when you stay in big cities. But because of the different platforms on the internet now, whether it's booking.com or Airbnb, you can have a look and see exactly what the prices are so that you can budget accordingly. Again, when you're factoring in the money that you need for feeding, then think carefully about it. There's no chop bar at the end of the street when you get to the UK. That doesn't mean that you can't use self-catering accommodation and buy your own food from a supermarket and cook it that way. You don't have to be going to fancy restaurants every night. But just make sure that you're thinking carefully about how much this trip is going to cost you so that you can budget accordingly. So, the next one here. I don't need to put in documents that I've put in before. Now, there's a yes and a no to this one. In that, yes, the visa officer can see from your records whether you've had a visa in the past. But the UK treats your visa application in a different way to, say, the Americans. The Americans are looking at, okay, you've had a visa from us before, we've trusted you before, and you've been and you've come back, so we'll trust you again, and you can use the Dropbox facility. The UK looks at it in a slightly different way. Instead of what you've done before, it's how things are going forward. They know that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you may have had a very successful business or you may have had a very good job, but 5 years and 10 years can make a big change in people's lives. We've all experienced the financial and economical impact of COVID, and we're all still reeling a little bit from that as well. So it's not unusual for savings to have been depleted, for perhaps salaries to have changed. So don't rely on historical documents. Yes, the visa officer can see that you had 5 children when you last applied, and then your next application shows that you've got 6 or something like that. That's absolutely normal. But so they will look at the historical documents, but don't think that, oh, well, I submitted my bank statements on my last application 2 years ago, so I don't need to bother this time. They still want to see that you are financially able to meet the costs of your trip. If anything, put more in than you think you're really going to need, because then it's there, it's done. There's no question for the visa officer. They can see it straight away. They don't have to dig around in your historical applications. As I mentioned earlier, these visa officers are on a time pressure, so they do need to turn these decisions around quickly. So if everything is there in front of them quickly and they can see it clearly, then fine, they can make that decision quickly. If they're not seeing it, they're going to default to a refusal, unfortunately. So do take care and include documents that you included last time. Looking at historical applications as well, a refusal from 10 years ago, we don't need to mention it because, oh, it doesn't matter, it was 10 years ago. Do not fall into that trap. It doesn't matter that you can't remember the exact date of the refusal. It doesn't matter that you can't remember the exact wording on the refusal, the exact reasons on the refusal. It's more that you declare the refusal. In the same way that if you say, oh, I was refused 9 years ago, and when they look, it was 10 years ago, or something like that, do not panic about that. They realize that not everybody remembers exact dates. But if you say, no, never had a refusal before in my life, and then they find that you've had 3 in the last 5 years, then straight away they're going to think that you're trying to hide something. The statistics and the records go back years. I've had clients who didn't realize that from 20 years ago, when they did something foolish when they were a teenager, that is still going to haunt them and they still need to declare it. They don't realize that the records are still held. So please, if in doubt, just say, I was refused. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was about however many years ago. You have space on the application form. There's one area where it's called extra information towards the end of the application form, and you use that. Never leave it blank. There's always something that you haven't been able to account for in the application. So use that section, the extra information, to explain whether it was, oh, I can't remember the exact date, or I can't remember the exact date that my parents were born. Now that they're late, it's not something I can ask them about. Anything like that, where you're unable to explain it in a drop-down list or the box isn't big enough, then you use it at the end on the extra information section. Right, so now we're going to look at flight and hotel reservations. Some people who've applied for Schengen visas will know that it is mandatory to include a flight reservation and evidence of where you're staying, which is usually a hotel. The UK realises that a flight reservation doesn't mean anything. A hotel reservation with platforms such as booking.com and all of those that offer a free cancellation until an hour before you're supposed to be there, then you're just wasting everybody's time. So with the UK, it is not imperative to include a flight or hotel reservation. There's nothing wrong with stating on there that you've looked at hotels in a particular area. Say, you say, okay, well, last time I went to London, but this time I want to go to Edinburgh, but I'll book the hotel when I know that I've got the visa. That is quite normal and quite accepted. So please don't feel that you need to waste time on making fictitious reservations. The UK are aware that this happens and there's just no point. You're not helping anybody. Right, then let's look at the visa itself. All the UK visas are multiple entry. When I started doing visa work a long time ago, yes, we used to issue single entry, double entry, multiple entry visas, but now they're all multiple entry. So if your visa, say this one on the screen, is issued for 6 months, if you can squeeze in a second trip, then do so. You've got the visa, you've paid for it. Then if you can squeeze in that second trip before it expires, then why not use it? Because the next time around when you're wanting to apply again, you're demonstrating that you can comply with the terms of your visa. You've been and you've come back, not just once, but you've done it twice. So they're going to look more favourably when the next application you're thinking, oh, well, I'm ready to apply for a 2-year visa this time. Just to make you understand as well, if you apply for a 2-year visa, that doesn't mean that you can stay in the UK for 2 years. It just means that within those 2 years, you can go and come, go and come, go and come. The maximum time you can stay in the UK is 6 months, and this is written on the visa by a duration of 180 days. I do not suggest that anybody thinks about staying for 180 days, because when your application lands on a visa officer's desk or even at a border force officer's desk, they're going to want to know, how can you afford to live in a country outside your own when you should be at home working, or you should be at school studying, that type of thing. So do not be tempted to stay right the way up to the 180 days. The only time that this is more likely to be accepted is for elderly relatives, because we don't want them pinging backwards and forwards on a regular basis. Yes, it takes them longer to recover from the journey, and if they're going to make that journey, they're probably only going to go once a year. So if they want to stay longer, then absolutely fine, but still within the 6 months, nothing beyond that. Now, the comment on the screen is showing you that if my visa is granted for 5 days, I can't extend it to 10 days. The visa officer understands that situations change. Your initial intention when you arrived in the UK was to go and see your friend for 5 days, and then you end up bumping into people and they say, oh, there's a party coming up, there's this coming up. Oh, seeing as you're here, can you not see if you can extend? There's absolutely no problem between extending from 5 days to 10 days. What we do have a problem with is when you say that you're staying for 5 days and you stay for 5 months. That becomes a problem, because that clearly wasn't your original intention to stay for 5 days. Nobody can change their plans that drastically. So long as when you make your application, it's what you intended at that time. When you're sitting at your desk filling out the form, my intention at that time was to stay for around about 5 days. If something happens and you stay for 10, that's not a drama and it's nothing to sweat about. The next one here on the screen, I've got, if I do not use the visa, the next time I apply, it will not be granted. I have had particularly people from the Lebanese community in Ghana and the Indian community in Ghana who've said to me, oh, well, if I don't use the visa, they're going to punish me and they're not going to issue the visa next time. Believe it or not, visa officers have bigger fish to fry than whether or not you decide to use your visa. You've applied for it because obviously when you made the application, it was your intention to go. If after that something happens and life happens, and visa officers, believe it or not, are human and they do understand that life happens, so they will not penalize you if you do not get around to using the visa. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's the same when you've got Schengen visas in your passport or Canadian visas in your passport. There is no reason that you actually have to do it. You have to go through a lot of drama. I was going to say wahala, but we're on video. There's a lot of drama with getting your documents together and making your application. Nobody does this for fun. They know it's a challenge to do this. So they understand that it's your intention to go and then something happens, then life happens. Okay, Alia, you've just popped up. Was that because you had a question?
Yes, there is a question in the chat box in the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, so star one, Hassan, he wants to know regarding the guidance that a visa refusal more than 10 years ago need not be disclosed. So he wants a clarification as to whether or not this means that when asked if you have ever been refused a visa, can one simply answer no? And if so, would that not amount to being untruthful?
No, this is what I'm saying. This is the myth, is that people think that because the refusal was over 10 years ago, then they don't need to disclose it. Then that is wrong. That's wrong. However long ago, you do need to disclose it. You need to disclose it, whether it was a UK refusal, whether it was a US refusal, a Canadian refusal, a Schengen refusal, any of those, because the UK talks to its partners. So if you haven't disclosed it and then the UK goes to their partners and says, we've got this applicant, we're thinking about issuing, do you have any information on them? And then they come back and say, oh, actually, we've applied with us 5 times and we've refused them every time. Then we call it visa shopping to see which is the best way that you can go. So always be straightforward. As I say, do not think that they're not going to check up. As I say, even if it means that you say, I can't remember exactly when it was, I think it was 10 years, it might not be. Or even if you just don't realize that and you just put, I was refused 9 years ago. If they check their records and see it was 10 years ago, they're not going to penalize you for that. What they will do is penalize you if you don't mention it at all. So
Sure.
always declare it. I hope that
Okay.
answers your question, Hassan.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah, we've got thanks for the clarification there. You're welcome, Hassan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarah, so there's another one here from Adrian.
Okay.
So he says he was wondering why would someone want to visit the UK if they didn't have a plan to stay there?
Because basically life happens. It could be that, there's been a bereavement in the family, you were planning on going, and then all of a sudden, great Auntie Florence has left us and you need to organise the funeral. There can be all kinds of different reasons. I find it often with people who are self-employed, is that they always think they can get away, and when it actually comes to it, business is saying, no, boss, you can't. We need you here. We need you to oversee this. We need you to oversee that. Which is often the case when I deal with the families of self-employed people, in that when we're looking at the children of self-employed, I will tell them, don't put on the form that you're going to be traveling with both parents, especially when you're self-employed, because sometimes business gets in the way. So just ask the visa officer to say that the children can travel perhaps with a mother who will make the trip happen for the children, but dad maybe has to stay home and look after the business. So it's always worth factoring that in. And again, if you're not clear on that, you can put it in the extra information on the application form and say, ideally, we want to travel as a family. However, we're not sure that dad's work will allow us for him to join us. So when we're putting it on the children's applications, please just state on there that the children can travel with their mother. It doesn't have to be with both parents.
Parents, okay. Yes, Sarah. So before you proceed, just another one, I think from the same Adrian.
Okay.
Yeah, so he says he had a partner who was refused and deported. So in such a situation, would that go against him when his Ghanaian partner applies to come to the UK?
Okay, I'm just reading that question to make sure I get that round the right way round. Okay. He had a partner, we're not sure if it's a romantic partner or a business partner,
Yes.
Who was refused and deported. Would that go against me when my Ghanaian partner applies to come to the UK? So, Adrian, if I'm getting you right, you're in the UK and you've invited your partner and they got refused and sent back, and you're wanting to apply again for that same partner to come, then yes, you can make the application. But whatever it is that the visa officer wasn't happy about, or by the fact that they were refused and deported, suggests that they had a visa and then perhaps there was a change of circumstances, which meant that the visa was no longer valid, and that's why they were sent home. That's something that's going to be going into a bit of nitty-gritty, and perhaps here isn't the right forum. That's something you can contact us offline and we can go into greater detail about that. But when you have been refused a visa before or refused entry before, you need to declare it on your visa application form, no matter how long ago it was. And when you're refused a visa, even refused entry, there will be a notice that explains why. Now, the UK at the moment is the only country that does that. The US just give you a tick box form and say, you don't qualify. Well, that doesn't help anybody because you don't know how to rectify what the problem is. The UK does actually explain why they feel that you didn't qualify. Now, you might not agree with that, but they've given you an explanation as to why. And so there might be something that you can work on over a period of time to make sure that that is all ironed out before you make a reapplication. I hope that covers it a little bit, but as I say, we can't go into too many of the details because this is a public forum. Okay.
So I think he clarified, yes, he clarified that by partner, he meant wife.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you can apply and she's your girlfriend to start with, and then the relationship develops, and then she becomes your wife, and it's a different set of circumstances.
Okay.
So yes, declare it, but yes, look at what the issues were. It's not a no, never, but it might be a no, not right now. And that's when it's worth getting advice before you reapply. Okay.
Right.
And then I've got this one. Now, this is very popular in Ghana. As most people will know, is that the UKVI don't have direct contact with the visa applicants anymore. When I was a visa officer, there used to be a long queue outside the British High Commission, and that's all moved away now, and you go through what they call a commercial partner. Now, the commercial partner until the middle of last year was a company called TLS, and in Accra, they used to operate from the Movenpick. The commercial partner now is a company called VFS Global, and they operate in Accra, they operate from the Grand Yemen, which is pictured on the screen. Now, I need to reiterate here that the people at VFS have no influence in the decision-making process whatsoever. I don't know if I should repeat that because it is a really tough message to get across. The visa people in the UK make the decision. The people who are taking the biometrics, scanning your passports, doing your photograph, taking your fingerprints, they have no influence in the decision-making process whatsoever. Doesn't matter what you believe or what you've been told, they do not make any decisions. They are just a collection point. It sounds a bit harsh, but they are. It's just a collection point for your documents and for your photograph and fingerprints. So one of the misconceptions that I've experienced is that people think that by paying for additional services, then that's going to show the visa officer that they've got money and therefore they can afford the trip. I had one family of 4 people and they'd been refused their visas. So the next time when they applied for the priority service for all 4 of them, even though they didn't need the priority service, because they wanted to demonstrate to the visa people that they had money. It didn't make a blind bit of difference and they all got refused. Now, I don't know if any of you know, but the priority service costs £500 per applicant. Convert that to CDs and we're talking a lot of money. Now, they just wasted £2,000 just by thinking that showing that they had the money, the visa officer would give them the visa. They didn't read what was on the refusal notice from the previous occasion, so they didn't look at where they'd gone wrong in their application. And as I said, the UK is one of the few, if not the only country that gives a full explanation as to where you went wrong in your application. So use it, read it, and go into the full detail that they have gone into to fully understand where you went wrong. You might not agree, you might take it personally. It's not meant personally. It just shows that this is the criteria, this is what you've given us, and they don't match. So that's all it is. So the different additional services that VFS or any commercial partner are going to offer are things like the priority service. When you arrive at the counter, they straight away ask you, oh, do you want the SMS service? Do you want the courier service? And people are in a panic. I've seen them myself. They're in a panic. And they're thinking, oh my goodness, I haven't even given my biometrics yet, and they're offering me these extra things. Oh, perhaps I should just say yes, because that means that they'll look at my application in a different light. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference. The people in the Visa Application Centre are trying to upsell additional services to increase their income, increase their revenue. They are not there just to, it's not something that you definitely need. If you live miles away from the visa application centre and you want to have the passport returned to you by courier, then go for it. Use the service. Some people don't want to be bothered by coming back to the visa application centre, and that's fully understandable. But don't think that by paying for these additional services, it's going to influence the outcome of the decision. The next one I've put on there is the scanning and uploading. A lot of people say to me that they didn't do the scanning themselves because they thought there was a special way of doing it and that only the VFS people know how to do it. It's not. A lot of us with smartphones now, you can scan the documents that you have quite easily, or you take them into the office and you do it after work, not in work hours, and you scan your documents and you save them so that you can upload them to your visa application. The cost in Ghana is an additional 680 cedis. That's quite a large chunk of money, especially against the price of the visa, which is about 2,100 cedis at the moment. Why are you spending extra money that you do not have to spend, thinking that if they do it, they're going to do it in a special way? They're not. So long as the visa officer, when they open up the application, they can see the documents clearly. So don't put them upside down. Don't photograph them with a shadow on. Don't photograph it with your thumb in the way of the critical bit that they want to have a look at. Take your time in scanning and doing all of that yourself. It also means that when you get to the visa application centre, you're spending less time in there. And trust me, there's a lot of people there and it can take some time for them to process everybody. But if you've done your own scanning and uploading, all they need to do with you when you get there is do your photograph and your fingerprints. And that is going to be so much quicker. You can do that and then be on your way and you don't need to be hanging around, especially if you've travelled for considerable distance to get from home to the visa application centre. For example, this morning I was looking at an application for somebody who's coming from Takoradi, and we were trying to work out which was the best day for them to go based on the traffic on when to get to the visa application centre. And when they get there, they don't want to be messing around. They just want to know that everything is done so that when they leave, that they're spending as little time, they can leave and get back home again. The other one is the premium lounge. Again, people feel that they need to pay the extra for the premium lounge so that they're seen as, oh, you know, we can afford this, so we should do it. The premium lounge at the visa application centre costs more than the premium lounge at the airport at Kotakar Airport. I don't see the reason for doing that. You're going to be in the Kotakar Airport premium lounge for longer than you should be in the premium lounge at the visa application centre. If you want these services, then go ahead and pay for them, but don't think that they're going to influence the outcome of your application. And Ali has just popped up again. That probably means I've got some questions.
Yes, exactly, Sarah. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. So he wants to know which section on the visa application process shows for uploading documents yourself, because on the portal, it's not visible to upload documents. So he wants to know which section.
Right. Yep. No, that's understandable. You need to complete all of the visa application form. You need to then pay for the visa application. So for a 6 months visit visa, that's about $174 at the moment. That fee is it's set in pounds in the UK, and then it's converted into USD. For some reason in Ghana, we need to pay in USD. And at the moment, the exchange rate is indicating it's £174. Once you've done that, the next stage, it will show you on the application form, there'll be a, I can't remember if it's blue or green, a blue or green button, I can't remember, sorry, saying provide your biometrics. You click on that button and it takes you straight over to the commercial partner page. And that is with VFS Global. You use that page to then scroll down and then you'll see your own details at the bottom. and then you can click where you want to submit your application. At the moment, it says Accra, or it says Thankful Heights, which apparently is in Kumasi. I don't know why it doesn't say Kumasi Thankful Heights to give people a chance, but at the moment it just says Accra or Thankful Heights. You select that button, and then it leads you to booking an appointment date. When you go on there to start with, you'll panic because you'll see that for the next few days, you have to pay extra for the appointment. But the commercial partner has a contract with UKVI, which says that there must be a free-to-use appointment within 5 working days. So, for example, this morning we paid for somebody's visa application, and today's Thursday. So the next free-to-use appointment time is next Thursday. So don't panic when you go on there and you see that the appointment dates have been taken and it's saying that you need to pay extra. Don't be forced into paying extra. Just plan in plenty of time. It's always beneficial to plan ahead, especially with visa applications. So you book your appointment a week later. Once you book that date, it will then come up with the additional services that you can have from VFS. And one of them is self-upload. And you will see that the attached fee to that is 0. So that's the one that you click. You click on self-upload and then go to the end and put continue. It will take you to the next page and it will have your details, your appointment time, the appointment date, and then you can go to the button where it says upload files or upload your files, something like that. You click on there and then there will be a breakdown of all the different types of documents that they're expecting from you. It's always worth downloading the checklist that UKVI give you as well, because then you can see what type of documents is UKVI expecting to see from me. It will, depending on your application and depending on the responses that you have given, it will show you whether you need your bank statements, whether you need a letter, whether you need evidence of this, whether you need evidence of that. And that is to steer you to ensure that you can do this yourself. So look at that checklist and use it. And then go to the upload button and then start uploading the different documents under the relevant category, whether it's employment, whether it's financial evidence, whether it's your passport, whether it's life events, so say a marriage certificate or birth certificates for your children, that type of thing. That's where you'll be able to do it. You can upload in PDF and you can upload in JPEG, but what you've got to make sure is that your files are not too big. So if you want, then compress them before you upload them. That's how you can save yourself the money on the scanning and uploading. So Mr. or Miss Anonymous, I hope that answers your question. Okay, let me just have a look at the other questions on the Q&A.
Yes, Sarah, I think for now, you've answered all the questions so far there. Yeah.
Okay, so I've touched on planning ahead. I can't reiterate this enough. Do not rush an application. You need to plan when you're going. I've seen people who've said, oh, but you know, the business meeting is next week, or there's this, or there's the graduation or whatever. They normally give you advance notice on these things. Obviously, the one that they don't give you advance notice on is a funeral, and some people obviously do need to travel for the funeral. Now, what I will reiterate is, even though it's desperately important that for you or your family that you attend a funeral in the UK, the criteria for meeting the visa restrictions, that's still going to apply. Whether you're going for a funeral or not, you still need to meet the criteria. And that can sometimes come across as quite tough and quite unfair, but it's so that they maintain the integrity of the visa system. So please do your best to plan ahead. Even when it comes to making your application and you say you don't want to travel right now, but you've got an idea of when you do want to travel, you can ask the visa officer to start your visa up to 3 months' time. So here we are on the 20th of November. you've got somebody who's got something in February. You can apply now. You can apply, complete your form, do your biometrics, but you can put on the application form, look, I'm not going until February, so can you start the visa on the 1st of February, please? They will honour, most of the time they honour the request. They would prefer that people do their applications in advance and don't leave things to the last minute. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making that request and say, look, here's my situation, but I don't need it right now. There's no point a visa that's only valid for 6 months sitting in your passport doing nothing for 2 or 3 months. Have the visa start when you want it to start and use it. As I say, if you've only got one trip planned, fine, just use it. If you want to squeeze in a second trip before the end of that 6 months, then go for it. The other thing to think about is when you're booking your flight, it's always best to book that in advance. You'll get a better deal. If you leave it to the last minute, then that's when the cost of the tickets go up. So don't leave things to the last minute. Always apply in advance. Okay, we've got a couple of questions.
Sarah,
I've just
yes.
yes.
So we have a question here. I think from the same
Okay.
Animals attendee. He says he wants you to throw more light on how to apply for a group tour visa as a travel and tour company and the requirements involved.
Okay, right. It's sometimes thought that, oh, because we're all going as a group, then we'll all get the visa. The visa officer is still going to look at each individual's circumstances. Now, in a big group, you might have people who've travelled before, you might have people who've only travelled once, you might have people who've never travelled at all. So just because you're going as a group does not mean that you will all get the same outcome. It will depend still on the circumstances of each individual. Yes, it will be noted that you're going as a group, but that will not influence the outcome of the decision. I hope that answers that one. So, well, as to how to apply, make sure you do it way in advance. Plan ahead. You don't want to be leaving this to the last minute, because if you're booking flights and things for a big group, you need to know exactly how many people, because you need to go to the airline and confirm exactly how many people we've got the visas for. So plan ahead. Do not be scared of planning way, way in ahead. I know it's not very Ghanaian. Trust me, I've been here a long time. I know it's not very Ghanaian to plan ahead, but you really have to when it comes to visas. Okay?
Yes. Sarah, we have some questions also coming in. If I can go ahead to read them out. So we have a question from Aisha. It's quite long, but she says she holds a visitor's visa and she is into culinary and agribusiness. She wants to know what type of visa she will need to take part in exhibitions to showcase her brand. And also, is she eligible to apply for the innovative visa to be able to take up short-term work to teach her skills in colleges in the UK?
Right, so there's two elements to that question.
Yes, of your question.
Right, so the first one is, if you're going to the UK for business, you can apply for a business visitor's visa. You can showcase your brand, you can make contacts, all that kind of thing. So long as you're not actually working and you're just showcasing your products and then coming back to Ghana again, then that you can do under a business visitor's visa. The innovative visa goes into a lot more detail, and that's unfortunately not something that we can go into because it's really quite convoluted. So I would suggest there that we book a one-on-one session, because there's so much behind it. If you've already looked up and know that there's a visa called the innovative visa, then it's all on the government website. Go through all the details and see if you think you qualify. If you think you do, then I can steer you to somebody who focuses on those types of visas. Because it's so specialist, you want somebody who can guide you through the exact points on that one. But it's not something that really we can cover on a session like this. But yes, if we keep the two things separate, yes, you can go on a business visit and attend an exhibition and showcase your products, that's absolutely fine. But the innovator visa, you need to go into a lot more detail, and the criteria is really quite long. Okay. And there was one that we missed a little bit further up as well, something on family ties. Here we go.
Family ties, yes.
Touched on family ties. What do you look out for, please? Sometimes you're told you don't have enough family ties. Yes, you are sometimes told that you don't have enough family ties. Sometimes the application form doesn't actually ask you to state your family ties to Ghana particularly. So again, use the extra information section. I would definitely put in about your immediate family in Ghana. And even when we have extended family who perhaps get involved in childcare and things like that, so that it supports you in your day-to-day life. If it's relevant and shows that you've got a reason to come back, then include it. The question isn't directly asked on the application form, but it is something that the visa officer is going to consider. So please, if you can, use the extra information to explain your family circumstances. In some cases, we've even used photographs to demonstrate that, you know, the person is involved in the community, they're involved in church groups, they've got, you know, extended family. It might not be an official, I'm married to this person or I have this many children. It might be that they're an active member of the community and we can demonstrate it in other ways. So put yourself in the visa officer's shoes. What do you want to see? That's what we have to focus on. Here we go.
So there are some questions here too.
Okay.
So it says, is it true that if you have been refused a visa by another country, for instance, USA or Canada, UKVI will almost always refuse yours too? Is it true?
It's not automatic that they will refuse you, no. There's going to be, also you've got to think about the time period. I mean, you might have been refused a USA visa 10 years ago when you were a student. Now you're working, you're married, you've got children yourself or something like that. They're going to look at, has there been a change in circumstances since that refusal? The UK will expect you to produce bank statements and pay slips and all this kind of thing for, say, 6 months, whereas the Schengen countries might only ask for 3 months. Sometimes the Schengen countries, you're more likely to get the visa than you are with the UK. So some people use trips to the Schengen zone to demonstrate that they can comply before they think about going to the UK. But I've seen applicants who've been to the US, they've been to Canada, they've even been to the UK, and then the next visa they've applied for is being refused. Now, I don't agree with it because I think the person has clearly demonstrated that they can stick to the rules. So on those types of ones, then I might challenge it. Or I might review it and say, well, actually, I can see it from where the visa office is coming from. So don't think it's automatic. And certainly don't hide it in the belief that, oh, well, I won't include it because they won't find out, because if I don't include it, then I'll get the visa. Whereas if I include it, I'm automatically going to get refused. That's not the case. Okay. I mean, I've had one client who came to me and he had 3 UK visa refusals when he first came to me. He told me that he really wasn't bothered about going to the UK, but his friends had told him that he needed to get it sorted out because his circumstances didn't match somebody who was going to get refused. So he came to me a little reticent and said, oh, you know, see what you could do. I'm not really that bothered. Anyway, I guided him through the process. He put his application in and he was issued. With that 6-month visa, I think he went twice. He then came back to me for a 2-year visa. And then after that, he was even bringing a friend in because his friend had had some visa problems as well. And I was teasing him, saying, oh, are you the man who didn't really want to go? Are you the man who got refused and said, oh, madam, I'm not really bothered about this, but my friends say I need to get this sorted out. And how many times have you been now? And he said he'd been 4 times at that point. So what I'm saying is, it's just because you've been refused, what they're saying is it's not happening right now. It doesn't mean that it's not ever happening. Okay, we need to get over that thought that, oh, I've been refused, so I'm never going to think about that again. But also, we don't want to get onto the treadmill. We do see some people who get refused and then they go, that's not right, I'll apply again. And then they get refused again and then they go, that's not right, I'm going to apply again. And all that does for the visa officer is it reeks of desperation. And if you're desperate for the visa, are you really just a genuine visitor? Is debatable. And I know it can be frustrating, and I know people want to clear their name, but sometimes you have to walk away, take a deep breath, leave it for 6 months, a year, whatever, maybe go somewhere else, show that you can go and come back, and then we can look at it again. So don't think that it's the end of the world. It's not, but be sensible about it as well. Okay, so I hope that answers
Sarah,
that.
I think the questions are really coming in
They're
at this
thick and
juncture.
fast.
But
that's absolutely fine. Yep.
But I was thinking maybe if you want to finish with your presentation, then we will dedicate the Q&A segment for them to ask as many questions as they will.
Yeah, actually, that was my last slide. So we had actually hit target, which I was a bit worried about, but we had actually hit the right target, so that's fine.
Okay, then that is fine.
Right, so let me see. First-time traveller for a vacation, what are the requirements? The requirements for a first-time traveller are the same for every person who wants to put in a UK visa application. But what I would say is this. With 195 countries in the world, a visa officer is going to think, if you haven't been to somewhere else, why are you suddenly coming to mine? If you haven't been to Burkina, if you haven't been to Togo, if you haven't been to Cote d'Ivoire, then why is it, out of all the countries in the world, why is it mine that you want to come to? This is why I do highly recommend that people travel outside their home country before they think about traveling to a country that needs a visa. And when we look at visas, we're in Ghana, so we have to talk about the football, don't we? But the visa applications are sort of in a Premier League, in that the UK, the USA, Canada, Schengen, they all consider themselves to be in the Premier League. Then we've got the second division where maybe you used to need a visa, say South Africa and Dubai, but now you can do that without a visa. And then there's the lower divisions where we don't need to demonstrate too much and we could just pop across, say, to Kenya or to Egypt or to Senegal. Now, that is nowhere reflection on the status of any of these countries. It's just to help me demonstrate to you about the visa requirements. So for a first-time traveller, think about, have you demonstrated that you've been outside your home country before? Can you afford the trip? Can you afford the trip yourself, or are you relying on somebody to help you? If you're relying on that person to help you, is it reasonable? I had a 45-year-old guy come to me and said that his mother's paying for his trip. And I said, well, if you're 45 and your mother's still paying for your trip, should you really be going anywhere? If you can't afford it and you want to go on holiday, then you shouldn't really be relying on your mother. If you are 15, not 45, then yes, fine. But it's that type of thing you've got to think about. So be reasonable. Is it reasonable to think that this is what I want to do? Is the visa officer who doesn't know me from Adam, are they going to accept what I am saying on my visa application? There's always going to be a first time for everybody. Nobody was born with stamps in their passport. There's always going to be a first time. But be prepared, think sensibly about it, and just demonstrate exactly what you want to do. I mean, I've got first-time travelers who's been for graduations and weddings and all kinds of things. So it's possible, but just think sensibly about it. A lot of it depends on your age and your financial situation. Okay.
So there's another question here too. It says, if he is traveling with his partner, is it possible or is it advisable to apply together And then the second part of his question is, does the amount in a person's account matter, or they just want to see frequent flow of income for a worker?
Okay, so looking at the first one, if I'm traveling with my partner, is it advisable to apply together? If one of you has the visa and the other one doesn't, then you're just going to have to say, look, I'm going with this person, but they've already got theirs. But if you are planning on traveling together and neither of you have got the visa, then apply together. It backs up what you're saying. So yes, just apply together. But don't say I'm not traveling with anybody, and then your friend or colleague says, oh, but we're traveling together, because sending mixed messages to a visa officer is almost a guaranteed way of being refused. So make sure that you say what you're actually going to do, what your intention is.
Okay.
The second part, yeah.
Yes.
Does the amount in your account matter? Yes. You've got to be able to demonstrate that you can afford the cost of your trip. We've already talked on the roughly 15,000 Ghana cedis for a flight to the UK right now. So if you've only got 100 cedis in your account, then yes, it makes a big difference if you're going to use that bank statement. I've had people come to me and say, look, my relative in the UK is going to pay for my trip. So, and I desperately need to go because it's a funeral. And look, this is the person's bank statement. And when I've looked at the bank statement, one bank account had £100 in it. The other bank account was overdrawn. And I said, well, they can't even afford to pay for your ticket. So your visa application is going to be refused. And they kept pleading with me saying that, look, we're going for a funeral. I said, it doesn't matter what the reason is. If the person who's sponsoring you can't afford it, then they won't issue the visa. On the second part of that question is about frequent flow of income. Yes, they want to see that if you're an employee and that your salary is going into the account, yes, they want to see that. And they want to see whatever's on your payslip that actually hits your bank account.
Okay.
What they don't want to see is any additional cash deposits. So if you are in the habit of lending cash to a friend and then they want to pay you back, I'm not saying don't accept that money being paid back, but either keep it in a separate account, put it in your Momo, or be prepared to ask that friend to say, look, I'm going to put in a visa application. They're going to want to know where this money's come from. Are you prepared to write me a letter to say, I borrowed this money off my friend, so that we can justify where the money has come from?
So
okay.
Jehoshaphat wants to know, for first-time visit visa applicants from Ghana or Nigeria, what is the single biggest reason for refusal that you are seeing currently in 2025, and how can this be avoided?
I'd say that the most frequent reason for refusal is people not demonstrating their source of income. It can be easier for an employee to show their source of income because they have their pay slips. And so nobody can argue with that. They've got their pay slips and that amount has gone into their bank account, which is absolutely fine. But we have a lot of people in Ghana, and I'm sure it's the same in Nigeria, where people have a side hustle and they are including that as part of their income to demonstrate that they can afford the trip. However, they won't have employed an accountant and they would just say, oh, but it's just this, it's just that. And so these random cash deposits end up going into their current account. And the visa officer has no clue as to where this money is coming from. So they will think that the money has been put in there just for the sake of making a visa application. They don't realise the propensity for having a side hustle here in West Africa. So if you're going to rely on that separate income, I would suggest that you employ an accountant or a bookkeeper or somebody, but keep those funds separate so that it can be clearly shown for the visa officer, look, I buy something, I don't know, machine parts or something, and I sell them on the weekends, and this is what I do. But during the week, Monday to Friday, I'm here at my office job. So by keeping them separate, then the visa officer can see exactly what it is. They can also then see that maybe the business is registered. Maybe an accountant has said, yes, that this is how much it costs them to purchase this thing. This is how much they've sold it for. And here at the end of the 6 months or at the end of the 12 months, this is how much money this applicant has made or this person has made from this side hustle. If it's documented like that, then you can use it in your visa application because you're justifying it. If you're just relying on these cash deposits, the visa office is not going to be happy about this at all. And they're going to think that it's just been cash that's put in there just to boost your circumstances. So make sure you think carefully about it.
Yes. Sarah, so just a follow-up to the question you just answered. Yes, Jehoshaphat's question. So he says, after a refusal, how long should someone really wait before reapplying? And what new evidence or documents actually reverses a decision of a previous refusal?
Right. Again, because the UK gives you a full decision as to why you've been refused, you need to read every single point. Unfortunately, here in Ghana, what I see is that people will skim read it and they'll just focus on the last point. There are probably 2, 3, or 4 points in there as to what the visa officer has been unhappy about. And you have to address each of those points. So think about it. It might be that you can demonstrate it within a month. It might be that, oh, I didn't realize that that document was necessary. I've got that. I can show it. It might be that, especially for the people who have got these random cash deposits going into their account, I would probably say leave it for at least 6 months. Get your finances in order so that you are showing your fixed income from your salary and your side hustle in a separate account, nice and clean and tidy, so that the visa officer can follow it clearly. So it depends on the circumstances, but whatever it is, address the issues that the visa officer has raised.
Okay.
So what documents are needed for business visit visas, and do you need an invitation? Okay. Yes, you do. The visa officer needs to see which business you're going to visit, what exactly you're hoping to achieve from a business visit, because so much of the time now we can actually see products online, you can have meetings online like we are today. So why is it that you actually need to physically visit the UK factory or plant or whatever it is? Why do you actually have to have that meeting in person? So yes, it will need an invitation, and yes, you need to justify it. Now, if your business is supporting the application, then you need to demonstrate that the business can afford it. Now, if you're working for some big company like MTN or Vodafone or something, and they're sending you on a trip, then no, I'm not going to ask to see the bank account to show that they can afford to send you. But if you're working for a small company, then yes, I will want to see the business bank statement for the small company to show that that company can actually afford to send you on that trip.
So there have been publicly documented instances when credible personalities have been denied visas, and their response was that they weren't sure whether those credible celebrities will return back to Ghana. And then they also tell them that they cannot appeal the refusal. This is highly unfair and feeds into the myth that there is a quota system. So how do you respond to that, Sarah?
Okay, right. I'm not sure of the credible personalities. Yeah. However, to reassure you, no, there isn't a right of appeal against a visit application. Years and years ago, there used to be an appeal when you were making a family visit application. However, like with most things, the actions of a few ruin it for the many, in that there were some people whose family extended to 550 people, and they probably hadn't even met this person, but they still said that they were going to visit a family member in the UK. Consequently, they withdrew the appeal rights on family visits. It's so, yes, it can feel unfair, but I hear you on the myth that there is a quota. There is not a quota. There is a criteria, and you have to meet that criteria. Now, you may feel that you have demonstrated that you've met that criteria, but here we offer a service that we're calling the application review service. So if you have done your application and you think you're ready to submit your application, but you would like me to review it with my visa officer glasses on, then I will do. And I will come back to you and say, right, well, I don't know who this is. This isn't clear. You say you've got a business and this is giving you an income, but you've not produced the evidence that you've even registered the business. You haven't produced an accountant certificate. You haven't done this. You haven't done that. So although you may think it all looks fine, and in your mind, you feel as though you've presented it all, you've got to remember that somebody else is looking at it. And you don't have the opportunity to speak and say, oh no, what I meant was this, or no, I really meant was this, because there's going to be no interview, not like the old days, not like when I used to interview people. All your documentation has to do the talking for you. So everything has to be in there. I can't comment on, as I say, on the credible personalities, but and I don't know if it's the UK or whether it's the US, but that's essentially what it is. There's a criteria, and you can demonstrate that you meet it. You might actually meet it, but you haven't shown that you meet it, and that's the difference.
Okay. Yeah, so there's another question here. It says, it's very, a bit long. So it said, we recently put in an application for a colleague on a company-sponsored visit. The application was backed by the sponsor details. However, the application was refused, citing the applicant's financial circumstances. Now he wants to know, are companies' financial circumstances not enough to support an application for a visit visa? That's what he wants to know.
And yes, I can see Mr. Anonymous, you've also said apologies as if this has been answered already because I joined late. Yes, it was. Yes, it is. It's not just the business that is sponsoring the applicant. Yes, they have to show that they can afford to send this employee off on this trip, but the employee still has to demonstrate that there's a reason to return to their home country, in this case, Ghana. So we need to demonstrate that they have enough ties here. So whether that's financial, whether that's family, social, economic, whichever. So are they married? Do they have children? How much is their salary? Is that salary going into the bank? Have they been able to save a little bit? Have they bought property? Have they bought land? Do they have investments? All kinds of different things. There's no set list to say you can tick all of these and then you'll definitely get the visa. But what you do have to do is demonstrate for your colleague, yes, for the colleague that is traveling, they have to demonstrate their personal circumstances as well.
Okay. So there's another question here. So he said, hello, does all what you have shared, so everything that we've discussed today, does it apply in the reverse if someone wants to also come to Ghana and start a business?
If someone wants to come to Ghana and start a business, I suggest they contact the GIPC, the Ghana Investment Promotion Corporation. I can't remember what the C stands for, corporation. And they will tell you what the requirements are. And then you can get your residence permit with Ghana Immigration based on the expat quota that the GIPC have recommended. So We talked about sort of the Premier League of visa applications. Some countries hold you to a very high standard, and the UK is one of them. Other countries consider this to be a tit for tat. So if a visa fee is this amount for so for example, a visa fee for the UK is 174 US dollars. And so some countries might say, okay, well, in that case, for the Brits, we're going to say that the visa costs $174. I know that the Nigerians do this because I've been to the Nigerian High Commission and asked them what the cost of the visa is. And they said they were asking me what nationality I was. I was like, what's that got to do with anything? And it's because they charge differently depending on your nationality. So sometimes it is a bit of tit for tat.
Okay. Sarah, so we have another question from Pearl. So Pearl she says she wants to travel to Bahamas, but she knows she will need a transit visa through the UK. And she wants to know whether she will be granted as a first-time traveler.
That's a tough one, Pearl, because the UK is going to look at the visa requirements for your final destination. And probably for the Bahamas, you don't need a visa. And this happens of a lot of the different Caribbean, sort of South American countries where Ghanaians don't need a visa, but to get there, they've either got to go via the UK or via the US. So the visa officer is going to look at whether although it looks like, oh, well, it's just a transit visa and I'm not going to actually be staying in the country, and so why wouldn't they give me the visa? Unfortunately, there are some people who apply for a transit visa because it's cheaper than the visit visa and because it looks like you're not going to be staying. And when they arrive in the UK and get off the aircraft, they flush their passports down the toilet and then they claim asylum. So this is why a transit visa application is going to be looked at as just as strictly as a visit visa application. So in answer to your question, it's not I can't say yes, you'll definitely get it as a first-time traveler, but you're still going to have to meet the same very strict requirements. In fact, I'd probably be tempted not to apply for a transit visa and just apply for a visit visa, even though you would intend only to apply for to transit the UK. It's really, I mean, lots of people I've had this with different companies. They've wanted to have business meetings in these different countries, especially in the Caribbean, and as if the individuals involved have not got any previous travel, I've told them to really consider that the guest speaker comes to Ghana rather than the group going over to the Bahamas. As unfortunate as that sounds, it saves a lot of disappointment further down the road.
Yes. So I see DeGraft's hand up. DeGraft, you can speak now. Ask your question.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
Welcome.
for the opportunity to ask my question. Somewhere last year, I applied for UK visa. Actually, I'm the sole distributor of tough sheet downproofing materials here in Africa. So I supply people in Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and then Burkina Faso. So I had a meeting with Douglas Mesa. They are the owner of the company in the UK. So they sent an invitation for me to come. But then when I apply for the visa, after I submit my financial document to back the application, the person who denied me the visa said, I state that I am self-employed and I'm earning 50,000 pounds per year. But when they look at it, they are not convinced. So because of that, they will not give me visa. But last year alone, I paid over 100,000 pounds to the Douglas company in the UK. This year, I've paid more than that. As at now, I'm still having an amount to pay. 25th of this month, I've gotten an invitation to attend Dr. Christian Road birthday party at the British High Commissioner's party. and I'll be going. And in fact, they sent another invitation for me to come again, but I'm trying to deny it, turn it down because of the refusal last year. So the reason is they don't believe I could have that amount in my account. And the second two is they don't believe when I come to the UK, I'll return back. But some of us here, we are doing better than the relatives who lives there. So I just want to find out the reason again why such things should happen. Because you mentioned of somebody working at MTN or Vodafone, you will not request for such people bank details. Yes, some of the small business, they are doing far better than some big businesses. Yeah, you could mention like that. So I want to know. I want to know more, please.
Okay, thanks for your question there. Could you lower your hand as well so that we know we've invited you to speak? Thank you very much. It's a combination of factors. I didn't say that the visa officer gets it right all the time, and I do challenge some of the decisions. But it also might be that with the documentation that was presented, you didn't demonstrate everything as thoroughly as perhaps you could have done. Now, this goes back to, we think that we've submitted everything. However, the visa officer doesn't know you. They don't know Ghana, they don't know Africa. And so they're just relying on the documents that are presented. When the visa office was here at the British High Commission, if the visa officer was wavering and thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this looks okay, but let me just speak to the applicant, they could pick up the phone and give them a quick call and say, look, you're wanting to do this and you've done that and we've got this, but we're missing that. Could you drop it into us and we'll look at it before we make a decision? But unfortunately, those days are gone because now everything is dealt with in the UK, and the volume of applications means that the visa officers are under a lot of pressure to make a decision and make a decision quickly. It might mean that you need support with your application. And I know from this white wall behind me, you can't tell where I am, but I am here based in Ghana. And this is why I work with the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce, and I support Ghanaians with their applications. And if you want to reach out to UK GCC to get our contact details so that we can go into further detail where we're not sharing everything on this particular platform, and I might be able to review the refusal notice and say, but there was this that they had concerns about, and you didn't demonstrate that. So it's not the end of the world. I know it feels like it right now, but it's not the end of the world, and we can change fortunes around. I've done it before, as I mentioned earlier. I don't know if you heard about my chap who's now been 4 times. So we can work on it. Okay.
So we have another question here,
All right,
Sarah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Digraft. So if I can go ahead to read the question. So he says, if I am planning to come to the UK for tourism as a business registered owner, how much should be in the business account as well as my personal salary account to get the visa?
Right. There is no set amount that you need to have in your account. If you're going for tourism, the visa officer is going to want to look at your personal account to see that you have the funds for the trip that you're proposing. The only reason they want to see your business account is because that's your source of income. So the business account doesn't need to have a set amount. We all know that running a business, some months are good and some months are bad. And the income and the money coming in, going out, it fluctuates right the way through the year. But that doesn't mean that at one particular snapshot in time that the business isn't doing well. The business is doing well, but maybe you've had to spend a lot before you can earn a lot. This is why it's important to employ an accountant, because an accountant will do your financial statement, which you should be submitting to the Registrar General anyway at the end of the calendar year. But there's nothing to stop you from asking your accountant to do an interim statement for the first 6 months of the year or the first 9 months of the year, so that you can demonstrate in your visa application the health and viability of your business and that it's able to support you with the salary that you achieve. But with your salary account, so long as the business is paying the money into your personal account, then the visa officer can't argue with the salary that you're receiving. It's there, it's going from clearly as a transfer, not as a cash deposit, as a transfer from the business to your personal account, and then they can understand, right, that's their personal money, that's for them to spend as they want. With the business, you're not going to be using the money from the business for your personal trip. That's not what a business bank account is for. The business bank account is for running your business, and keep that separate from your personal account.
Okay. Yes, thank you for that. Sarah, so I see one here. I don't think this is really a question. I think it's just a comment, a frustration, if I can put it that way, that Felicia has experienced. So let me read out her comments. So she says, I keep getting denied visas despite having a stable job and genuine reasons to travel. The decisions feel random, often blaming insufficient ties, even for company-sponsored trips. This process pushes honest people toward document fabrication. Being unmarried or without children doesn't mean I want to relocate. Some of us simply want to visit, explore, and experience your country. So, Sarah, what do you have to say to that? I think this is really frustrating on her part, always getting refused.
Yes, it is very frustrating, especially when you feel that you've read the criteria and you meet the criteria and you've done everything you can to demonstrate it, and yet you're still getting denied. I do hear you on this. I did have one client who was unmarried, no children. I think she was about to hit 40. She had been with her employer for a number of years and had demonstrated regular promotions, regular salary increases, all of that. And she was refused. She came to me and I challenged that decision. And I said, look, not every woman in this day and age wants to get married and wants to have children. This is the difference now. We don't have to do that if we don't want to. That doesn't mean that she should be denied from traveling. She's demonstrated that she's got a good job. She's demonstrated that her parents are still at home. Why would she suddenly disappear when she's proved that she's got a good job, she's getting regular promotions, she's improving herself with extra qualifications so that she can do well in her career? That doesn't mean that she's some kind of flight risk. So I will challenge it. If I don't think it's right, I will challenge it. As I say, not every visa decision is right, and sometimes I'd have to back away and say, okay, we are going to agree to differ. But if I strongly believe that the visa should have been granted, then I will fight for you.
Yeah, Felicia, I think so. This helps clarify your frustration. So you can challenge it. You don't just have to end there, as she has said.
And definitely don't use somebody else's documents or document fabrication. That can only lead to a ban. And I've seen people who've been banned for 10 years. And so don't do it. Just don't do it.
I see Matilda's hand up. Matilda, kindly unmute and then ask your question.
My question is, we were going to Germany. I know it's not Sarah's answer. We were going to Germany last February. And when we were a group of 15 people, we were going to an exhibition. This exhibition, I've been to this exhibition for almost 20 solid years, every year, February. And when we went there, all of us were rejected for the application. They didn't give us the visa. Everybody, my papers are correct. They didn't even look at our papers at all. They just give a refuse. Then later on, they asked us to reapply. Then when I reapply, they gave me 10 days. And the fare too is a 5 days fare, 2 days in, 2 days out, which is 9 days. And then they gave me 10 days. And unfortunately for me, when I was at Amsterdam, there was a strike there. So we got stuck there. So in this case, why is that somebody like me who has been to Germany for 20 solid years and I've been given a 5-year visa before? Every year I go, and this time with the group, they refuse everybody of us. Why? Why should it be so?
Thank you for your question, Matilda. But as you did say, I'm a UK visa specialist because I used to work for the UK government. I understand your frustration with the Schengen system, and this is one of the reasons why the UK never joined the Schengen system. Even when we were part of the European Union, we didn't join it. I personally don't think it's right that they only issue visas for up to 10 days and things like that, because circumstances change, things happen that are totally beyond your control. This is why the UK issues a 6 months visa. Even if you've just asked for 5 days, 10 days, they will issue you with a 6 months visa because they understand that things happen, things change. I can only assume in your situation that because it was a group and they didn't like all the situation with all the group members, unfortunately, you do get some odd hangers on with group applications. And that may be why your application was originally refused, but then they revisited it because they could see that you have previous compliance. But I can only speculate, I'm afraid, because the Schengen visa system is out of my expertise and I'm more of a UK visa specialist. Okay. I've just spotted one in the chat, which is I was refused 5 years ago and applying now, I forget to indicate. Will I be refused? Yes. You always have to declare your previous refusals. Like I said earlier, even if you've forgotten the exact date, even if you've forgotten what exactly it was for, just put on the extra information. Yep, I was refused. I think it was 5 years ago. Can't honestly remember. I think it was because I didn't show this, that, and the other. To be perfectly honest, don't go into reams and reams of detail as to why you think you were refused, because they will look it up and they will see why they weren't happy with you. They just want you to admit that you were refused. It's not a memory competition to see, can you actually remember the full details of why you were refused? Okay?
Yes, Sarah, so there's another question here. So he says, I was denied a visa for extremely spurious reasons, especially as my job was sponsoring the trip. But it seemed I was denied because I do not have enough reason to return to Ghana, such as dependents and property. The UK is cold and the weather is bad. Why does UKV I think I will want to overstay my welcome? So that is his question.
Oh dear, thank you for being so honest about the awful weather in the UK. As you can see, we're here in November and I'm quite happy in the warm climate in Ghana. It's not just about the weather. The UK do look at their statistics and they do look at their previous records. So, for example, if they've issued 20,000 visit visas to Ghanaians in the past 12 months, they are going to look at how many of those Ghanaians have come back when they said they were going to come back. How many of them have worked or been arrested working when they shouldn't have been working? How many of them have just disappeared and we've got no idea where they are? And the UK is very good at collecting statistics, especially when it comes to visas and migration. And migration is a very big hot topic in the UK. So although you say that the weather is cold and why would I want to stay, there are a lot of Ghanaians who just put extra coats on and they end up staying. And when they're looking at deciding, they will look at it from a risk perspective in that if last year 20,000 Ghanaian received their visa, but only 18,000 came back. That's 10% that have disappeared. We don't know. So they're going to they're going to look at those 10,000 and go through all those applications and say, right, what are the similarities in these applications? Is it a certain age group who are not complying? Is it because you're from a certain region in Ghana that you're not complying? Is it a certain employment status where you're not complying? That type of thing. They will look at it with a fine-tooth comb. So as much as you feel that it's spurious, there will be an explanation. And as much as you're frustrated, they will have given an explanation based on what was presented to them. They don't have all of your circumstances in front of them, but they will base their decision against the immigration rules and against what you have presented to them.
Yes, Sarah, so I think we've answered almost all the questions here, but I have just like 2 more questions to ask before we just wrap up. Yeah, so now beyond the paperwork, what human stories or experiences have stood out to you in your work? Cases that reveal what applicants often misunderstand about the UK's approach to migration.
Oh, wow. Right. I would probably say that the biggest misconception is people think that just because you've got a visa, then that means you can go and work. And I hear that all the time. Oh, but madam, I'll only stay for 6 months and I'll only work for a few months and then I'll come back. And it's a visa, it comes in different categories. There's visit visas, there are work visas, there are study visas, and you need to stick within your boundaries. Just because you have a visa for the UK does not mean that you can just go and work. People think that they won't get caught. They will get caught. And it's not only about getting caught, it's also about if you go to the UK and you think, oh, actually, it's quite nice and I don't mind the weather and I will get myself a job because look how much I can earn. As soon as the employer knows that you don't have papers, then they will either send you away and say, no, I don't want to run the risk of being fined. Or if they do take you on, they will say, well, look, I don't have to pay you what I should pay you because you don't have the papers. And so ultimately you will find yourself being exploited, and nobody wants that. And everybody thinks here in Ghana, oh my goodness, the minimum wage is over £12 an hour. That's a fortune. But it's not a fortune when you've got to pay your tax in the UK. It's not a fortune when you've got to deal with high rent costs and high bills for utilities. That's why we have a high minimum wage. When you convert it to cedis, it sounds like a lot of money, but it doesn't compare. And this is what I need to explain with a lot of my applications, is when I'm explaining it to the visa officer as well. You can't expect that somebody's salary here automatically equates to something in the UK, because the cost of living in Ghana is totally different from the UK. So I would say to people, do not be tempted. As much as it seems, oh, like we're going for greener pastures and we're going on the golden route and the money tree grows in the garden. You speak to a lot of people, and I have done, especially the ones who have gone on the healthcare worker visa. They've gone there thinking it's going to be brilliant. It's tough. It's good, but it's tough. In that, yes, they can get on in their career. Yes, they can earn a good salary, but it's not easy. And you'll notice that they don't come down to Ghana very often because they've got limits on the amount of annual leave they can take. And they've also got limits on because of the cost of the trip. It doesn't sound that much to start with when you think, oh, they're earning plenty of money. But you have to remember that the cost of living is so much higher. So do not be tempted. And it's even if it's not for yourself, educate those around you about the risks of exploitation, and do not put pressure on people to say, oh, well, you're coming down, so you need to bring me this, that, and the other. Why? The money tree does not grow in the garden when you're in the UK. So don't put extra pressure on people to bring things for you. Be glad that they've come back and they've come to see you, and wish them well, but do not put extra pressure on, oh, you've got to go over there and make something of yourself. If you're going to make something of yourself, you can do it anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be in the UK.
Okay. So, Sarah, my final question. So, what upcoming policy shifts or changes in the UK migration priorities should Ghanaian professionals, students, or businesses be preparing for in 2026 and beyond?
There's already a shift towards using e-visas, and students particularly will see that they haven't got the vignette, which is like the sticker. They don't have that in their passports now. They're being told that they will get an e-visa. And so that means you need to be IT savvy so that you can set up your e-visa, because although it sounds like you can't lose it because you can't lose your passport and things like that, but you can get locked out of your e-visa account. So you still need to be keeping an eye on things there. There's nothing specifically against or for Ghanaians, but it does disappoint me in that I have been coming to and from Ghana for over 25 years, and it disappoints me that when I look at the league table of visa applications, that Ghana is in the top 20 for the numbers of applications that are being submitted. But when it comes to the issue rate, they're way near the bottom, and that disappoints me, because Ghana, you can do better. And if just because somebody's shouting loudly to say that they can get you the visa, that you need this and you need that, it doesn't mean that they're right. You need to be thinking about, are they a credible source of information? And look at the government websites, the UK government websites, because that will tell you what's going on as well. The UK is going through some changes at the moment with migration, because there are concerns with the people who are arriving in the UK on small boats. Fortunately, that doesn't impact us in Ghana, because the people who are arriving on small boats are fleeing persecution. I know that I used to work in Sudan, and I know that there are Sudanese on some of these boats, and it's not right that people are being pushed to these routes. But we enjoy a good level of democracy and standard of living in Ghana, and we should reflect that in our applications to go to the UK.
So at this juncture, I want to find out if there is any other questions, considering the fact that we are almost hitting our closing time. Yes, someone wants Sarah to leave her contact or email. Yes, so you can reach out, Sarah. So if you can just briefly mention it.
Yep, it should be on the screen now. I'm hoping that that's showing. Is that come up now?
Yes, I think it's clearer now. Yes.
Ah, right. Okay. Sorry about that. Yep. There's a phone number on there, or there's an email address. If you've got different questions that you want to ask, the phone number is on WhatsApp. Yes, there's plenty of information on the UK government page. If you go to UKVI, which is UK Visas and Immigration, they have a lot of information there. Follow the guidance, follow the caseworker guidance if you really want to go into the nitty-gritty of it all. But be careful of who you listen to. That's all I would say, is that just because your friend applied and his visa was issued doesn't automatically mean that you have to replicate your friend's situation. I used to see this a lot in Nigeria, where they'd say, if you're between 18 and 35 and you're not married, then you're not going to get a visa. And so everybody went out and got marriage certificates. They weren't married, but they just got marriage certificates. And of course, they're just like, oh, that's not what this is about. It's about presenting yourself in the right way. Don't be tempted by any forged documents at all. They will spot them. I've spotted them. People have brought them to me, and I've told them to go away, because they just, why would I entertain somebody who brings a forged document to me? So no.
Okay.
Have I answered? Oh, sorry, go on.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Maru. We can hear you. Please
Okay.
ask your question.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're
Please,
welcome.
I wanted to ask a question with regards to the first-time traveler. I work in one of the Ghana biggest government institutions. I don't like traveling. However, my uncle and two of my uncles are in UK. They've been there for about 30 years. I'm their next of kin. So I've not gone there, but in case of emergency, it means that they said they want me to come. Do UK people have a special way of getting a visa for such an emergency?
I would suggest you don't leave it until there is an emergency. I would suggest that you put in your application and go and see your uncles when they are fully well and fighting fit, because you don't want to leave this until it gets to the emergency stage. Go and visit. I know you're saying that it's not really for you, but even if you get the visa and you don't use it straight away, but just think carefully about it. But when you are applying for the visa, if you do have somebody who's going to invite you, then let them state in the invitation fully what they are going to pay for and what they're not going to pay for. For example, some people want to pay for your flight. Some say, well, he can sort out his own flight. I will accommodate him. The other one will feed him, or that type of thing. Just so long as the invitation clearly states what they will and won't pay for. And also make sure that you have sufficient ties to bring you back to Ghana, whether that's family, of yourself, your immediate family. It can even be parents and siblings. It doesn't have to be that you're married. It doesn't have to be that you've got children. And also, if you've got a good job, then why would you leave a good job if it's just to go and visit an uncle? But I wouldn't leave it until it's an emergency. I would really suggest that you go and see them now. Go and see them now. You just don't know what's going to happen.
That's fine. That's fine. Then I will take your contact and then have a link up from there.
All right,
Okay.
that's fine.
Thank you. We are located. I think we put the picture of the VFS at the Grand Oyema, which is on Apavia Junction in Accra, if you're familiar with Accra. And we are on the diagonal opposite corner. We are in Silver Star Tower, and Japan Motors is on the ground floor. You're welcome to pop in and say hello. You can take our email address. You can take our phone number. Or you can have a look, as I say, on the government website for additional details as well.
All right. And I'm in Accra, so that will be simple for me. I know Silver Tower at Opebia, so.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So please, any other question? Any further question? Musa's hand is up. Musa, so kindly unmute and ask your question.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much, Musa.
I asked a question on the chat. My friend wants me to visit. Even though I have travel experience, I've been to Sweden, Nigeria, and other places. However, I'm still not sure that if I apply, I'm going to get it. What are the requirements? I know he will send me an invitation, but what are the things that I need to look out for in order to be able to secure the visa? So, aside the invitation, do I need a hotel accommodation? I didn't join from the start, so I wouldn't be able to tell whether you've already mentioned
That's
all
all.
these things. Yes. So I beg of you, if you can take me through for these ones, I will be glad. And then my second question is, when you were talking, you made mention of first timer coming to UK. Why is that person not going to other countries or visiting other African countries or other countries that visas are not required? So you are referring to travel experience, I guess. So in this case, if the person doesn't have anything to do in other countries, are you suggesting that that person, because he wants to visit somebody or go for a tour in UK, cannot? Is that the case? And would that be fair to the individuals? Thank you.
Okay, right, Musa, you have to remember I don't make the rules. Okay, I'm just enforcing the rules. In that I'm steering you through the rules. Okay, so in answer to the first half of your question, if you're going to go and stay with somebody in the UK, that's absolutely fine. And your invitation from that person should set out exactly what they're prepared to pay for, whether it's your flight, whether it's your accommodation, whether it's your feeding, or whether they're just saying, look, he's paying for it himself, but he's going to stay with me. That's absolutely fine. And then if you are going to be paying for this yourself, you have to show that you can afford to pay for it. So earlier I touched on the fact that we had a lady with nothing in her own account and £100 in the sponsor's account. Well, that's not going to cover the cost of her airline ticket. So be reasonable, do your research, find out how much is the airline ticket. Can I really afford this? And if it means that you're going to have to clean out your bank account just to afford this trip, then is it reasonable that the visa office is going to accept that? Why would you spend 6 months of your salary just to go and see somebody that you maybe don't know very well? That's the kind of thing you've got to ask yourself. So think carefully about whether it's reasonable for you to be putting in the application. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have previous travel experience, but it's not unreasonable to expect you to have at least left your home country before you think about traveling on a 6-hour flight to the UK, however many thousand miles away that is. Why is it the UK that's suddenly holding this interest? Why are you prepared to spend so much money on it? If you've never been anywhere else before, and it's not that, as I say, it's not that you have to, but it just adds to demonstrating that you understand what the visa requirements are and that you can stick to the rules. If you've been somewhere and come back, a lot of people like to go to South Africa. There's such a wide variety of things to do in South Africa. Now that Ghanaians don't need visas for South Africa, you can go, you can explore the place, you can see something different and come back. And that helps for you to demonstrate to the visa officer for the UK that you can stick to the rules. I'm not saying that it's compulsory. And as I say, I don't make the rules. I'm just trying to explain the rationale behind the rules. Does that answer your question, Musa?
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping everybody's found this webinar useful. Please give lots of feedback to UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce, because if there are other topics that you would like us to cover, whether it's to do with visas or anything else, then do let them know so that we can host different webinars like this again in the future. Thank you to everybody who's participated, and thank you to UK GCC for hosting this as well.
Thank you very much. I think it is highly educative and much appreciated in UK GCC. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.